The Arizona sun beat down mercilessly on the cracked asphalt of the Desert Rose gas station, a forgotten pit stop on Route 89 where tumbleweeds had more frequent visits than customers. Sarah Mitchell's hands trembled as she gripped the steering wheel of her battered 2004 Honda Civic, its engine ticking like a countdown to disaster. In the back seat, her 5-year-old daughter Emma hummed softly to herself, oblivious to the terror coursing through her mother's veins. Sarah hadn't slept in 36 hours. The bruise on her left cheekbone had faded from purple to a sickly yellow-green, carefully concealed under layers of drugstore makeup that melted in the relentless heat. She'd been running for 3 days now, ever since she'd finally found the courage to grab Emma and flee in the middle of the night while Marcus was passed out drunk on their apartment floor. Marcus. Even thinking his name made her stomach clench. Her ex-boyfriend, Emma's father. The man who'd promised her the world and delivered nothing but broken bones and broken promises. The restraining order she'd filed 2 months ago might as well have been written on tissue paper for all the protection it offered. He'd found them twice already, and each time his rage had grown darker, more dangerous. The gas gauge needle kissed the E with mocking finality. Sarah had exactly $47.16 to her name, hidden in her sock because Marcus had taught her that purses were the first thing men took. She needed gas. She needed food. She needed a miracle. As she pulled up to pump number 3, Sarah noticed them immediately. 6 motorcycles lined up near the convenience store entrance, their chrome catching the sunlight like warning flares. Hell's Angels. She could see the death's head patches on their leather vests even from a distance. Everything she'd ever been taught told her to fear these men, to avoid eye contact, to get back in her car and drive away on fumes if necessary. But then she saw him in her rearview mirror. Marcus's black Ford F-150, unmistakable with its cracked windshield and the dent on the passenger side from when he'd punched it in a rage. He'd found them again. He was 3 cars back at the intersection, stuck at a red light, but his eyes were locked on her Civic. Sarah's breath came in short, sharp gasps. Emma was still humming, playing with her worn stuffed rabbit, her baby girl who deserved so much better than this life of fear and running. Emma who'd asked her just yesterday why Daddy was always so angry, why they had to leave in the dark, why Mommy's eyes were always red from crying. The bikers were laughing about something, their deep voices carrying across the parking lot. One of them, a massive man with a gray beard down to his chest and arms covered in intricate tattoos, was telling a story with animated hand gestures. Another, younger but equally imposing, leaned against his Harley and took a long drink from a water bottle. The light turned green. Marcus's truck roared forward. Sarah's mind raced through possibilities like shuffling cards. She could drive away, but she'd run out of gas within 10 miles. She could go inside and call the police, but Marcus would be gone before they arrived, and he'd find her again tonight, tomorrow, next week. The restraining order meant nothing to a man who'd once told her he'd rather see her dead than with anyone else. Her eyes fell on the bikers again. Dangerous men. Men who lived outside the law. Men who'd probably hurt people, broken rules, done things she couldn't imagine. But also men who were laughing together like brothers. Men who'd pulled over for gas and snacks on what looked like a cross-country ride. Men who, despite their fearsome appearance, were just standing in the Arizona heat, enjoying their freedom. Sarah made a decision that would either save her life or end it. She stepped out of the car, her legs shaking so badly she had to grip the door for support. Marcus's truck was pulling into the gas station now, his face visible through the windshield, twisted with that familiar expression that always preceded violence. She had maybe 60 seconds before he reached her. With trembling fingers, Sarah reached up and adjusted her sunglasses, pulling them down just enough to reveal the fading bruise. Then she did something that went against every instinct for invisibility she'd cultivated over 3 years of abuse. She looked directly at the bikers, held up her hand in a gesture that was half wave, half plea, and mouthed 2 words that would change everything. "Help me." The gray-bearded biker's laughter died mid-sentence. His eyes, sharp despite his age, locked onto Sarah's face with an intensity that made her knees weak. He saw everything in that single glance. The bruise, the trembling hands, the desperate plea written across her features. Then his gaze shifted past her to Marcus's truck, now pulling into the space directly behind her Civic, blocking her in. Sarah heard the truck door slam with a force that made Emma stop humming. Through the car window, she could see her daughter's face change, that familiar fear creeping into her innocent eyes. Emma knew that sound. Every child of violence knew that sound. Marcus strode toward her with purpose, his jaw clenched, his hands already curling into fists. He was 6'2" of rage and entitlement, wearing the same stained shirt he'd worn for days. His eyes were bloodshot, his movements too quick, too aggressive. He'd been using again. That made everything worse. "Baby, we need to talk." His voice was deceptively calm, the same tone he always used right before the storm. "You can't just take my daughter and run off like some crazy person. You're making me look bad." Sarah's mouth went dry. She could smell the alcohol on his breath from 3 feet away. Behind Marcus, she saw the bikers moving, not running, but shifting positions with the practiced ease of men who'd handled trouble before. The gray-bearded one was walking toward them now, his heavy boots crunching on the gravel. "I'm not going back." Sarah's voice came out stronger than she felt. "We have a restraining order, Marcus. You're not supposed to be within 500 feet of us." Marcus laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "That piece of paper? You think I care about that? You think anyone cares?" His hand shot out and grabbed her wrist, fingers digging into bone. "You're coming home. Emma needs her father." The grip was familiar. The pain was familiar. Sarah had felt this exact pressure dozens of times before, seen these same fingers wrap around her arm, her throat, her hair. She opened her mouth to scream, but fear locked her voice in her chest. Then a shadow fell across both of them. The gray-bearded biker had arrived, and up close he was even more intimidating than Sarah had imagined. His leather vest bore patches she couldn't read, and his arms were thick as tree trunks. When he spoke, his voice was surprisingly quiet, almost gentle. "I think the lady asked you to let go." Marcus spun around, his grip on Sarah loosening slightly. "Who the hell are you? This is none of your business, old man. This is my family." The biker didn't move, didn't flinch. His 5 brothers had formed a semicircle now, silent witnesses to a confrontation that was about to explode into something none of them could take back. The gray-bearded biker tilted his head slightly, studying Marcus the way a predator studies prey. "Your family?" He glanced at Sarah's wrist, still red from Marcus's grip, then at the bruise barely concealed under her makeup. "Funny, because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're hurting someone who doesn't want to be hurt." Marcus released Sarah's wrist and stepped forward, puffing out his chest. "You don't know what you're talking about. She's my girl. That's my kid in the car. We just had a little fight, that's all. Couples fight. It's none of your damn business." The younger biker, the one who'd been drinking water, moved closer to Sarah's car. Through the window, Emma was crying now, her small hands pressed against the glass. The biker knelt down slowly, carefully, and made a funny face at the little girl. Despite her tears, Emma's lips curved into the smallest smile. "Here's what I know." The gray-bearded man's voice dropped lower, more dangerous. "I know a scared woman when I see one. I know what a man looks like when he's been hitting someone. And I know that truck of yours is about to have some serious mechanical problems if you don't walk away right now." Marcus's face flushed red. "Are you threatening me? Do you know who I am? I'll call the cops. I'll have all you criminals arrested. Go ahead." The biker pulled out his phone and held it out. "Call them. Tell them how you violated a restraining order. Tell them about that warrant you got for skipping your court-mandated anger management." Yeah, I can read the fear in her eyes, and I know what put it there. Sarah's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst. Marcus had a warrant? She hadn't known that, but it made sense why he'd been so desperate to find them, so angry. He was spiraling, losing control of everything, and that made him more dangerous than ever. Marcus took a step back, his confidence wavering. The other bikers had moved closer now, forming a protective barrier between him and Sarah. They hadn't said a word, but their presence spoke volumes. This wasn't going to end the way Marcus wanted. "You can't keep her from me," Marcus said, but his voice had lost its edge. "She's got nowhere to go. No money. No family. She'll come back. She always comes back. Not this time. Sarah found her voice, stronger now. I'd rather sleep in my car than spend another night afraid of you. The gray-bearded biker nodded approvingly. Smart woman. Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to get in that truck, and you're going to drive away. And if we ever see you near this lady again, you're going to discover that hell has angels for a reason. If you're rooting for Sarah right now, take a moment and subscribe to the channel. This story is about to take a turn nobody saw coming. Marcus stood frozen for a long moment, his eyes darting between the 6 bikers and Sarah. His hands clenched and unclenched, the rage still burning in his eyes. But even he wasn't stupid enough to take on 6 Hell's Angels in broad daylight. With a final glare that promised this wasn't over, he spat on the ground near Sarah's feet and stormed back to his truck. The engine roared to life, and Marcus peeled out of the gas station, tires screeching, leaving black marks on the asphalt. Sarah watched until his truck disappeared down Route 89, her entire body shaking with relief and residual terror. Her legs gave out, and she sank against her car, tears streaming down her face. The gray-bearded biker knelt beside her, his weathered face surprisingly kind. Name's Jack. That's Tommy, Razor, Bear, Snake, and Diesel. He gestured to each of his brothers. You got somewhere safe to go? Sarah shook her head, unable to speak through her sobs. Emma was calling for her from inside the car, and she forced herself to stand, to open the door, to pull her daughter into her arms. Mommy's okay, baby. We're okay now. Jack stood up slowly, exchanging glances with his brothers. Listen, we got a clubhouse about 40 miles from here. My old lady runs a women's shelter out of a church nearby. She helps people like you, gets them connected with real resources, legal help, safe housing. We can follow you there, make sure that piece of trash doesn't come back. Sarah looked at these men, these supposed criminals, these angels in leather and denim who'd appeared exactly when she needed them most. Why are you helping me? Razor, the younger biker, spoke up for the first time. His voice was rough but sincere. My sister. 10 years ago, her boyfriend put her in the hospital. By the time we found out, it was almost too late. He paused, his jaw tight. We don't stand by when we see that kind of thing. Not anymore. Jack pulled out his wallet and counted out $200. For gas and food. No arguments. He handed the bills to Sarah before she could protest. Diesel here is gonna follow you to the clubhouse. Tommy's gonna call ahead to my wife, Linda. She'll have a room ready for you and the little one tonight. Sarah clutched the money, overwhelmed by the kindness of strangers who society told her to fear. But these men had seen her silent cry for help when everyone else at that gas station had looked away. They'd stood between her and violence without hesitation, without asking for anything in return. I don't know how to thank you, she whispered. Jack smiled, the expression transforming his intimidating face into something almost grandfatherly. You just did by having the courage to ask. Now let's get you somewhere safe. The clubhouse was nothing like Sarah had imagined. Instead of the dark, threatening place she'd seen in movies, it was a modest building with a well-maintained yard and children's toys scattered on the lawn. Linda Martinez, Jack's wife, met them at the door with open arms and the kind of warm smile that made Sarah's carefully constructed walls crumble completely. Within an hour, Sarah and Emma were sitting at a kitchen table eating homemade enchiladas, while Linda made phone calls with the efficiency of someone who'd done this many times before. A lawyer who volunteered with the shelter, a social worker, a victim's advocate who specialized in domestic violence cases. Each call brought Sarah closer to something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Hope, the lawyer, Margaret Chun, arrived that evening with a briefcase full of documents. She explained that Marcus's warrant was for assault from a bar fight 6 months ago. Combined with the restraining order violation and Sarah's documented injuries, they had enough to ensure he'd spend significant time behind bars. Margaret had already contacted the police in Marcus's county. They'd pick him up within 48 hours. But what if he comes back before then? Sarah asked, her voice small. Jack, who'd been standing quietly in the doorway, spoke up. He won't. We've got brothers watching his apartment, his usual hangouts. The minute he surfaces, we'll know. And trust me, the cops will be right behind us. Over the next 3 days, Sarah watched her life transform. Linda helped her apply for emergency housing assistance and connected her with a job training program. The shelter provided counseling for both Sarah and Emma, who drew pictures with a therapist who specialized in helping children process trauma. Margaret filed for full custody and child support, building a case so airtight that Marcus wouldn't see Emma unsupervised until she was old enough to decide for herself. On the 4th day, Margaret called with news. Marcus had been arrested trying to pawn stolen goods to fund his drug habit. With the existing warrant, the restraining order violations, and new theft charges, the judge had set bail at $50,000. Marcus couldn't even scrape together the 10% needed for a bondsman. Sarah sat in Linda's office, processing the information. He's really in jail? For a minimum of 18 months, Margaret confirmed. And by the time he gets out, you'll have a new life built. New name if you want it, new city, new start. He'll never find you again. That night, Sarah stood outside the shelter, watching Emma play with Linda's grandchildren. Her daughter was laughing, really laughing, without that shadow of fear that had haunted her eyes for so long. The Arizona sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and purple, and for the first time in years, Sarah allowed herself to believe that beauty still existed in the world. Jack found her there, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. Thought you could use this. Thank you. For everything. I'd be dead if not for you. Jack shook his head gently. You saved yourself, Sarah. You asked for help. That takes more courage than most people ever find. 18 months later, Sarah stood in front of her own apartment in Flagstaff, keys in hand, watching Emma race up the stairs to explore their new home. The place was small but clean, with 2 bedrooms and a balcony that overlooked the pine trees. It was theirs. Really, legally, safely theirs. Sarah had completed her certification as a medical billing specialist and landed a job at Flagstaff Medical Center with full benefits and decent pay. Emma was thriving in 1st grade, her teacher constantly praising her kindness and creativity. The nightmares had stopped months ago, replaced by dreams of becoming a veterinarian or an astronaut, or whatever new fascination captured her imagination that week. The custody battle had been swift and decisive. Marcus, facing multiple charges and a pattern of violence documented by Sarah's lawyer, had lost all parental rights. He'd been transferred to a facility 3 states away to serve out his sentence. Sarah had changed her name, Emma's name, and left no trail for him to follow when he eventually got out. Linda had become more than a lifeline. She'd become family. She and Jack visited once a month, always bringing Emma's favorite cookies and staying for dinner. The Hells Angels had taken to calling Emma their honorary niece, and she'd drawn them a picture that now hung proudly in their clubhouse. 6 bearded bikers on motorcycles, rendered in crayon with hearts floating above their heads. Sarah had also started volunteering at Linda's shelter 2 weekends a month, helping other women find their own path to freedom. She recognized the fear in their eyes because she'd lived it. She knew the shame, the doubt, the voice that whispered they deserved the pain. And she told them the same thing Jack had told her. Asking for help wasn't weakness. It was the bravest thing anyone could do. On this particular Saturday afternoon, there was a knock at Sarah's door. She opened it to find Jack and Linda standing there with a wrapped present. We can't stay, Linda said, her eyes twinkling. But we wanted to give you this for your new place. Sarah unwrapped the gift carefully. Inside was a framed photograph from that day at the Desert Rose gas station. She didn't remember anyone taking it, but there it was. 6 bikers standing protectively around her car, while Emma pressed her little hand against the window. Underneath, engraved on a small plaque, were the words, "Angels appear in the strangest places." Sarah hugged them both, tears streaming down her face. Happy tears this time, healing tears. As she watched them ride away, Emma came to stand beside her. "Mommy, are we really safe now?" Sarah picked up her daughter, holding her close. "Yes, baby. We're really safe. And we're going to be okay. Better than okay." Emma smiled and rested her head on Sarah's shoulder. "I like our new life." "Me too, sweetheart," Sarah whispered, watching the sunset paint the Arizona sky. "Me too. Thank you so much for staying with Sarah's story until the very end." If this touched your heart, please hit that like button, leave a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Share your own stories of unexpected kindness or suggest themes for our next videos. Sometimes the help we need comes from the most unexpected places. Remember, you're never alone, and asking for help is always the right choice. Until next time, stay safe and stay strong.